The Speaker, House of Representatives, the leadership of the House of Representatives, honorable members, good afternoon. Let me start by, on behalf of my colleagues here and indeed the rest of the economic management team, which I have the privilege to lead, thank you all for this opportunity at this all-important dialogue. I also will, at this time, the very first time we're interacting after the passage of the 2024 budget, thank you on behalf of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for your support in swiftly passing his budget and your collaboration and cooperation generally. We have heard from my colleagues, and naturally, they have virtually covered the field. Where we are as a nation economically is a much, much better place than we were on the 29th of May, 2023. We have heard from the Governor of Central Bank. He talked about the unsustainability. He talked about the importance of sustainability before the implementation of the 8-point agenda of the President began. We were in an unsustainable place in terms of the fiscal situation of Nigeria. We were on the road to economic disaster. We had expenditure which was wasteful and unsustainable by way of the subsidy, not just on fuel, but the subsidy on foreign exchange, which confused the incentive framework, and people were chasing cheap dollars in order to make instant profits. Of course, in turning back from that road, as we have heard, there will be dust. However, bold measures have been taken, and there have been positive results. If we look at the finances of the government today, there has been benefit to the Federation account. There has been reduction in the consumption of petrol by about 20 million liters because there was smuggling, apart from even wasteful use of that all-important resource. And likewise, there have been other benefits which have accrued as a result of the changes that have been made. However, there has been cost. Inflation has increased. The cost of living has spiked. And right from the onset, Mr. President committed to making sure that the poorest and the most vulnerable were not left behind. And that's why, as we heard earlier from the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, the palliatives, the interventions have been rolled out. But let us examine exactly where we are today after a series of economic reforms and intervention measures. And I will come back to the all-important issue of helping Nigerians with the cost of living. But first of all, oil production. Mr. President made a commitment to confront, to engage, and indeed to use state power to subdue the vested interests that had resulted in oil production and sales going down to as little as 1.25 million barrels per day. Where are we now as a result of those interventions in terms of security and collaboration and cooperation across all the stakeholders in that industry? We are at 1.65 barrels per day and rising. And that is the quickest way to give relief. The governor of Central Bank just said now that in 2011, we were virtually at $100 billion a year from oil sales. So we can see the adjustment that has had to be made. Now we are on the way back up. 1.65 million barrels per day and rising. And in addition, the Minister for Budget had said that the bold measures that were taken are resonating around the world. We go to the IMF meetings, UNGA meetings, G20 meetings, and there is nothing but pride and admiration and deep respect for the courage that has been shown economically in Nigeria. And what has also resounded is that we have to look inwards. We have to focus on domestic resource mobilization. The chairman, FIRS, has said what they are doing in terms of domestic resource mobilization. I can tell you that with the application of technology and this august body and the Senate, if you look at the Hansard of December 30, the Senate mandated that we go out and bring government revenue that was lying in MDAs and government-owned enterprises, but rightly belonged in the Consolidated Revenue Fund, to bring it in. And that has been done. And the results are a rise in revenue to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Similarly, in agriculture, if we need to stabilize the economy, two things need to happen. Inflation needs to be tackled. The governor of Central Bank has said what is being done. He has announced his targets for inflation, and the fact that inflation targeting will be a key element of the strategy, which is right because they're in charge of the targets of monetary policy. But in addition to that, when you look at inflation, a large element is food inflation. In fact, food inflation accounts for 33% of the consumer price index. So when you attack food production, raise food production, you bring down the price of food, you bring down inflation, you get a chance to bring down interest rates, and there lies the road to investment. I was recently in Nasarawa. I met all the stakeholders in the agricultural chain, and they were able to commit with confidence to a very good dry season harvest. And we know all the steps that have been taken to intervene in that sector, from fertilizer, from grain supply, to funding for rice, maize, wheat, and cassava to bring under production 400,000 hectares. So these are the steps that are being taken to get inflation down, to stabilize the economy, and prepare for investment. I will also add that in terms of production, industry requires energy. I chair a power sector steering committee to deal with the issues in that sector. And on the issue of interventions, I must return to it. We are talking about increases in revenue available to all tiers of government through the federation account. And we are also talking about the ability of the federal government to raise resources. The commitment is that as things improve, even though there will be dust as we turn Nigeria into a building site through massive intervention in the housing sector, there will be, at every opportunity possible, further intervention on behalf of the poor, on behalf of the vulnerable, to assist with the cost of living rise, which is an inevitable result of having waited so long before we, as we heard earlier, turn the corner. And I think I will just end by saying that let us be confident, let us be calm, let us be assured that Nigeria has turned the corner in terms of its economic management, and the way forward is up. And at the same time, the poor and the vulnerable will be assisted at every turn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You just was very time conscious.
Honorable colleagues, I am Abubakar Hassan Fulata. Are you sure? I represent Birniwa, Krika Samaguni, Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Jigawa State. Mr. Speaker, I crave your indulgence. I have two questions. My first question is on tax, the Honorable Minister. The Nigeria tax expenditure grew from 4.41 trillion, that is 3.03% of the GDP in 2019, to 5.84 trillion naira, representing 3.79% of the GDP in 2020, to 6.79 trillion in 2029, representing 4% of GDP in 2021. My question is, can you furnish the House with a comprehensive list of tax waivers, relief and holidays granted to in the last 4 years, and rationale why those revenues were better forgone by the federal government? Why those tax waivers in the first place? My second question, Mr. Speaker.
No, one question, so that others can ask.
Very important. It's on subsidy.
No,
very important.
One.
Very, very important on subsidy. On subsidy.
Okay, make it brief, please.
Yes,
next time, everybody, I announce here it should be one question.
Yes, sir. Yes,
please.
sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Speaker, my second question is: when subsidy was removed, it was anticipated that marketers will import those products and flood the Nigerian market with those products, especially PMS. Unfortunately, subsidy has been removed. Nobody is importing. They are still the parasite as they were, depending solely on the imports by NNPC. Now that Dangote has started producing, Port Harcourt has started producing, when are you going to reduce the price of PMS in Nigeria?
Thank you. Honorable Ashoba. Okay, Halims, wait. Honorable Halims.
Thank you, our most federal constituency. My question goes to the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of Economy. Thank you, Honorable Minister. You know our economy is heavily dependent on crude oil. We export this crude oil and import refined products at a very exorbitant price. Can you please tell the whole House and Nigerians now or hereafter the revenue generation from the export of our crude and the same expended on the import, with the consequent sufferings on our poor Nigerians? Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you. Honorable Kim Kama.
If the custom tariff had been applied without waivers, even at 20% flat rates across board, Nigeria would have earned nothing less than 10.6 billion from that agency alone. Why the leakages? What is the coordinating minister of the economy doing to ensure that there are dedicated terminals at the major airport and seaport in Nigeria for exports only? With less bureaucracy to ensure that goods that get to these terminals are evacuated within 12 hours. This is the only way we can stimulate exports of non-oil commodities. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. That was straight to the point. This is how we want.
The Honorable Minister of Finance, in his submission, he said Nigerian economy has turned the corners. With the fear of sounding pedestrian, I don't know which corner has our economy turned. I know there is a very popular corner in Kano called Jakara. Is it Jakara corner or Ojogulle corner? Which corner have we turned? Because as we speak...
Speak to your mic.
Speak to the microphone.
Because as we speak, we have not seen prosperity, we have not seen hope, and you are saying the economy has turned corners. What the common man wants to see is put on his table.
What is the question?
That is my question. Which corner? Let me repeat it again, Mr. Speaker. Which corner has our economy turned? Is it the Jakara corner or the Ajegulle corner? Because I have not seen any.
Thank you.
Very simple.
Speak to the mic, please.
Do you have any plans to ensure that rural economic activities and development are returned by virtue of ensuring that local government system comes back alive? Federal government cannot do these things alone. There is reason why there is a local system of administration, the health centers, the primary school issues, the issues of market, and so on and so forth. Every month, you sit at the allocation committee meeting and allocate money meant for this local government. But this money does not get to local government. And we keep spending these billions of naira. That is why you see this gap. And there's unrest boiling out there because there is a rural disconnect with what government is doing. And that's why even honorable members are under pressure from people from their conscience because there's no system of government working. We don't want a situation. Can you do something to stop governors or local government systems taking money and those monies are not getting to those local government? Do you need a legislation for us to support you that any local government system that is not democratically elected, any money that is not spent in that rural area, that local government cannot access that money? Is there anything you can do from the Ministry of Finance to stop all these things that is helping in creating this poverty in the land?
Thank you very much. Let us do
two things: fiscal mismanagement or lack of fiscal discipline on the part of government at state and federal levels. We know what the Fiscal Responsibility Act says. It clearly stated that government at all levels shall borrow only for capital development and human development. And yet this rule or this provision in that act is frequently being abused. What is the Ministry of Finance or those within the ecosystem of our fiscal responsibility management, what are you doing or what plans are you putting in place to guarantee fiscal discipline in order to arrest or address the unnecessary borrowings by the federal government and the state governments? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
People, Nigerians from Obuja North, South, and Uri Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Oyo State. Mr. Speaker, Honorable House, being a former local government chairman, the NFIU has already passed the law that money should be paid directly to the local government, but it has never been implemented. So my question goes thus to the Minister of Finance, knowing of how the hardship of the poor and economy is, as the economy is today, what effect or impact do you think that the full autonomy of local government would have if granted and approved? The full autonomy, what effect do you think it would have on our economy as of today if fully impacted and granted? Because this honorable house has passed it like twice. Please, Mr. Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Government needs revenue, but the way to grow the economy is for the people to actually flourish. Now, my question is this. In your view, I know government is trying to push for local production of vehicles. That's why the levy on brand new vehicles is 70%. But in your own view, with the floating of the Naira now, the levy on used vehicles that would promote everyday Nigerians buying used vehicles to use for transportation to allow them earn a living, do you think that 35% levy placed on used vehicles is reasonable and can actually help the economy by making sure private individuals can actually flourish in this economy? Thank you.
And Ministers, my name is Barrister Jesse Okejo Onwakals I represent Nigerians, especially the habit of Lagos, which is the solo federal constituency too. The minister and his team, the chairman of FRS informed us that in 2023, they have a target of 10 trillion naira and they generated 12. In 2024, they have a target of 19 trillion. In other words, they have an increase of 20% in 2023. In other words, in 2024, it is expected that they're going to hit a target and go beyond. Now, with these monies in the coffers of the federal government, how do you and other revenues that will be generated from other sources, and how much are you still borrowing, knowing that federal FRC generated 12 trillion in 2024 and they are targeting 19 trillion, and the budget is 28 trillion. How are you going to channel these resources to other sectors that is critical to the development of
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My in-law, over to you.
Honorable colleagues, I am Aliyu Bappa Misau, FCNA. Minister, reports categorizing and identifying new revenue sources. Can you please humbly provide assessment of the progress of these reports and how to accelerate these efforts in achieving sustainable long-term revenue growth in this country? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, you know we are the live wire of this place.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I remain Ogel David Agada, member representing Oju, or Bifera constituency. I'm from Benue State. I appreciate our leadership for this opportunity. Honorable Minister of Finance, this my question is quite very important to me and to my colleagues because I'm from the food basket of the nation.
Yeah, go ahead with the question. Straight.
And it goes this way, very simple. The Bank of Industry and the Bank of Agriculture are meant to provide credit facilities to fundamental sectors of the economy. But their performance has been ambiguous. At best, what is needed for these bodies to improve in their output and engagement, especially in the monitoring, evaluation, and this learning process? Because when you watch very well, sometimes, like the way Mr. President have taught it very wise, and see that you are capable to handle this finance ministry, and it showed you with the responsibility. Another thing that will make this capacity about you to go down to the grassroots is having the right machineries. Like my speaker have rightly pointed out, I think we are more closer to Nigerians than any other person. So what are you doing to bring this to a good, resulting position that Nigerians can smile? Thank you.
Thank you.
I represent Bogoro, the Stafa.
Honorable colleagues, we are leaving here 4:15.
Thank you, sir.
So we have to round up to give them 10 minutes to respond.
Honorable
We're leaving here 4:15.
I'm concerned as a Nigerian, and more importantly, as a lawmaker. Since 1960, the Nigerian budget has been in deficit. Only in 1995 and 1996 that we had surplus. So what measures are you putting in place for us to have a balanced budget, if not surplus? And there are speculations that the CBN is going to scrap NISAL. How true is that speculation?
Are you asking the finance minister?
Yes, sir.
As a coordinating minister?
Of course, I is in charge of the economic issue.
Yeah, right.
To have a response.
Yeah, I know that.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Okay, in view of the fact that till now, it shows that the president made the right choice by putting you people in the particular, we recognize this man and did not recognize the other man. It's just the way it is.
Mr. Speaker, my question goes to Minister for Finance. Mr. Minister, I would like to ask.
Leader of the youths, go back to your seat.
Going straight to the question, what is your ministry doing to improve the life of our local manufacturers, to support local manufacturers in Nigeria? As we are witnessing the flights of foreign manufacturers leaving this country, what are you doing to support local manufacturers in Nigeria? Thank you.
Thank you very much. How are you?
You are not Imekwa from Federal Constituency of Ogun State. Honorable Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister for the Economy. In your speech, sir, you did say that there was smuggling. I quoted that exactly. And one of the reasons why petroleum products have been restricted to 20 kilometers to the border all over the country some years back was because of smuggling. Now that that is no more and subsidy has been removed, this policy has not been reversed, and it's an additional burden for people living around those areas. Mr. Minister, will this be removed very soon? My constituents are waiting to hear this from me. Will this 20 kilometers limit that petroleum products can get to the border, will this be removed now that there is no more smuggling and now that subsidy has been removed? Thank you very much.
In a summarize, have been implemented to reduce the cost of doing business in Nigeria, such as streamlining regulations, lowering taxes on essential goods, or facilitating access to finance for small and medium-scale enterprises. Because we know if that particular sector is stimulated, they are the highest employer of labor. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Over to you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, the leadership of the House and the honorable members. The overarching objective of Mr. President's 8-point agenda is to stabilize the Nigerian economy and investment climate such that domestic investment by Nigerians across all sectors can take place, as well as attracting foreign direct investment, investment in production of goods, investment in major services by foreign companies. That is the overall objective, because it is with that investment that there will be increase in productivity. The economy will grow, jobs will be created, and poverty will be reduced. Against that backdrop, which I will refer to and come back to as I do the needful and answer the questions of you, honorable members. Let me start from Honorable Abubakar from Jigawa. Yours was on the issue of tax waivers, and I will even add duty waivers. These are expenditure which needs to be well spent and not wasted. And the biggest wasteful expenditure that we saw has been cut out of the Nigerian scene was expenditure on subsidy, on fuel, subsidy, as I say, on foreign exchange. The level of tax to GDP is roughly around 10% now, and there is commitment to raise it to 18% within a few years, 18% of GDP. And that is so that the government has enough funds to do what it needs to do to lay the environment for private investment. There is a committee on fiscal policy and tax reform, which very shortly will bring before you some interim economic, tax, and fiscal measures in order to improve the investment environment. The second question from the Honorable from Jigawa referred to the removal of subsidies and importation. Clearly, the removal of subsidy has changed the landscape. And yes, what was envisaged was that with subsidy removal and enough liquidity in foreign exchange, there will be a situation where NNPC would be reduced to 30% of the import business and the private sector would come in. As we all saw, the supply response, the support in terms of foreign exchange liquidity did not come, and NNPC remained the only viable importer because it had the support of the government in a way which a private sector operator would not have. And given what was going on in the foreign exchange market, it is on your journey. You know the direction of travel, but there are times when you have to pause and slow down before resuming your journey. That is what happened in terms of what we assume would be the revival of the petroleum imports market to allow private operators to also function efficiently. And now, of course, we have domestic refining into the bargain. Let me move on to the Honorable from Kogi, who talked similarly about crude oil exports and refined products. Basically, we know whatever we are saying here today about the need to get inflation down, the need to get Nigerians to enjoy a lower cost of living and an affordable lifestyle. Number one road to salvation is getting crude oil exports up. It is God-given. The price is at $80, $77/$80. You can't get much higher than that. In the days when we had $100 billion of revenue, the oil price wasn't that high, but production was at 2.2 million barrels. You can do the mathematics. In short, our easiest and quickest route to a better living standard for all Nigerians in the short term is raising oil production, oil exports, oil sales, bringing in foreign exchange. Non-oil exports are also key, and we have to focus on them. And what I will say about the ease of doing business that we need to improve as far as non-oil exports are concerned will come as part of the initiative for trade facilitation, the implementation of the national single window and the trade improvements in trade facilitation that it will bring will assist in improving non-oil exports, lowering the cost, making it more efficient, and of course, improving the time scale at which that can be done. Honorable asked me, I think but he didn't wait to hear the answer to his question. He said, have we turned the corner? So let me just simply put it like this. We were going in a direction that was totally unsustainable. The fiscal deficit was rising and rising. Let me give you a metric, a figure that shows we have turned. The budget deficit last year was 6.11% of GDP. The projection for this year is 3.9%. I think anybody would say that is turning the corner. So please help me to pass on that response to the Honorable. When we talk about local government and we talk about the autonomy of local governments, or we talk about the performance of local governments, we are in a federation. Mr. President believes in federalism. Of course, he believes in democracy. He believes in federalism. He believes in fiscal federalism. And so, therefore, what belongs under the Constitution to the states goes to the states. What belongs to the local governments goes to the local governments. However, there is need. It is one country, it's one economy, and there is need for coordination. There's need for collaboration and cooperation. We have the National Economic Council under the Vice President, where the states, together with the federal authorities, come together to discuss matters of common economic interest. And likewise, there's a relationship under the Constitution between the states and the local governments. And while we are trying to improve things, we must respect those constitutional divisions. Talking about debt crisis and the issue of strict fiscal discipline and financial management, I will give you another figure. Last year, debt borrowing was 8.3 trillion, just over 8 trillion. This year is projected to be under 8 trillion. When you factor in inflation, you can see that that is a real drop. And it is based on the fact that revenue, as was said earlier and was alluded to, there is a substantial increase in domestic resource mobilization in taking into government's coffers what should be collected both from the private sector and from other arms of the government. Government earns revenue through its ministries, departments, and agencies, as well as through federal government-owned enterprises, partially funded, fully funded, or semi-funded by the federal budget. The Honorable from Oyo, I think I've answered, Honorable Alao Akala talked about...
Honorable Minister, 2 minutes more.
Talked about full autonomy, and I think I've dealt with that. Local production, in order to raise local production, domestic production and contribution to GDP, of course we have talked a lot about stabilizing the economy, bringing down inflation, being able to bring down interest rates, stabilizing the exchange rate. But on top of that, we must also, in order to have industrialization, agro-industrial processing, we need energy. We need gas from the oil and gas sector, and we need power, we need electricity. And one way out that this era of green economy has given us is that solar power is something that can reach the micro businesses, the small scale businesses, and they will tell you at the small scale level, don't worry so much. If you want to give us power, first of all, give us power in our workplace, so the tailors can work with his machines. Even the grinder of pepper has power to do his or her business. So that is the key, I think, to industrial development, providing, first of all, power. I think I've talked about the drop in oil revenue, BOI and BOA. BOA, there is an ongoing review under the National Council for Privatization, headed by the Vice President. Is looking at BOA. It is effectively financially distressed, and its governance is very weak at the moment, if not non-existent. So that is being looked at. And I think BOI, to be fair to them, are operating. I haven't heard anything untoward about the operations of BOI, although we would want them to do more. I think similarly with NERSAL. NERSAL is an institution which has sort of came to fill in the gap when maybe BOI was not performing what it should do. But I think that those are institutions that have to be looked at to make sure they are fit for purpose and that they can do the all-important interventions in agriculture that are successful. The governor of Central Bank said the point is we must be successful with these interventions, with these givings of subsidies. Finally, Honorable Isiaka from Ogun State, he talked about the conditions under which we can lift some of the restrictions to protect against smuggling. Once we have a market-driven exchange rate, once we have the closure of the gap between the various exchange rates and we have more or less a single exchange rate within reasonable limits, 1 or 2% difference, which effectively means that you have a single rate, then there is less need for other types of restrictions. The market will flow and it will do its job to clear willing buyer and willing seller, and the incentive for smuggling disappears, amongst other behavior that is not conducive to a well-functioning economy. On that note, Right Honourable Speaker, I think the message is that we have indeed turned the corner and we can look forward to building on what has been achieved so far to arrest the decline in the Nigerian economy and put the economy back on the path to rapid, self-sustaining and inclusive growth. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. You've done well with your presentation. Before I round up, I just want to,
questions, please, sir.
by the security committees of the House. Honorable Minister of Finance, this is an urgent one, which you have to note that currently security situation in the country is very poor, and effort is being made to take it from where it is to where it's supposed to be, better than before, an improvement in that sector, but more work is still needed there. So the security committees of the House brought a complaint, and they are saying supplementary budget for the security agencies, they have not been fully funded. I think it's one of the take-home to look into and see how we can do it, because it's our primary purpose as government. Having heard all that you said, there are a few recommendations that we want you to go with, and they are as follows: that CBN and the Ministry of Finance must work together. You want to say something? Yes, please. Information, yes. You are most obliged.
Right Honourable Mr. Speaker, regarding the supplementary budget, 50% of the capital has indeed been released. And the issue is the recurrent budget.
I didn't hear that, please.
And there's a corrigendum process going on. regarding the recurrence. I just wanted
Honorable
to get that information.
Honorable Satomi.
Okay.
Please, hold on.
Honorable Minister, please say that again. Members, we are distracted.
Regarding the supplementary budget, 50% of the capital budget has been released, and the issue is the recurrent budget, but there's a corrigendum process going on, after which that will be dealt with. Thank you.
The FIRS, the CBN governor, the Minister of Budget and National Economic Planning, the Minister of Finance. Having listened to you and the deliberation from the House, there are a few recommendations that we want you to take on. And they are as follows. 1, collaborative approach that is more defined, which says CBN and Ministry of Finance should work together in a more defined manner with relevant ministries like the Ministry of Budget, the private sector, civil society, and other stakeholders to develop and implement interventions in view of our current situation. Secondly, time-bound action. An era of making proposals that has no time for its implementation gets the Parliament worried. So one of the things to take home is establish clear timelines and performance indicators for interventions and their implementation. And this should be well communicated to the Nigerian populace. Regular monitoring of progress, evaluation of effectiveness, adaptation of strategies when needed or as needed is one of the things that we want you to take home. Remember, emphasis on information. Many people in Nigeria don't know what you're doing. So you need to push this information you have given to us through this platform via various other platforms. The more they know, the more information they know that they have, the more confident they build in your effort towards nation building. Achieve perfect tuning. We're asking that you embrace fiscal and monetary policy synergy. The Ministry of Finance and CBN must collaborate to achieve perfect tuning between their policies, ensuring they complement and reinforce each other, not contradict each other, because it's embarrassing when they contradict each other. This requires open communication, coordinated decision-making through those joint committees, and a shared commitment to inflation reduction, especially those ones that are cost push. Emphasis on those ones. It is also important that both the CBN, the Budget Ministry, and the Finance draw inspiration from success stories. The Parliament has been engaging other climes, and we urge to know what they are doing to survive these turbulent times globally. And we urge CBN to study and adapt successful inflation targeting framework that have been successful in other climes from other emerging, especially emerging economies. For example, Turkey's experience in the early 2000s is a reference point that we can look at. Turkey's multi-pronged approach, combining monetary discipline with structural reforms and fiscal consolidation, achieved significant inflation reduction and economic stability. Our call to action is that some of these are recommendations be used by CBN Governor, by Minister of Finance, by FIRS, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning. I want to thank you again for coming. I want to thank Mr. President for appointing individuals with competence like you. You have shown that you believe in this arm of government, just like your boss does as a product of the parliament. You will always come. You have honored us by being here. You've honored Nigerians by sitting here from morning till now. You've addressed our questions. Maybe not completely, but at least comfortably so, that we will have answers to give to our constituents who have elected us to be here. And I want to thank honorable colleagues. You have really proved Thank you very much, and God bless you. Please, can the minority leader move for the adjournment of this house? Deputy Majority is here. Please move for the adjournment of the house.
Thanks for checking out SYMFONI on YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe and like our videos for updates.